It's very important to understand where Yoga Nidra fits in the scheme of things and the preparatory processes and principles which we need to know before we enter the realms of Yoga Nidra. Because we are assembled here to do a deeper study, not just to learn the process. As I mentioned yesterday, if we just do the process as per tradition, it is a 45 minutes to 1 hour process. In all probability, all of us will be doing a nidra. It will not be a yoga nidra because as it is, this is very early morning for many of us, correct? And so what we are trying to do is to prepare ourselves in the mind and body before we are able to practice yoga nidra as intended by the tradition. So a stepwise process has been developed wherein at Srimad we have made a easy way to enter yoga nidra by making it into 4 levels. After the practice of 4 levels, we will be able to enter the original yoga nidra. These 4 levels are designed for us to enter yoga nidra, and these 4 levels are also yoga nidra only. You understood, no? So it has to be a gradual step. We have to reach there. That is first. Second is we have to understand some of the definitions of yoga which is mentioned in Patanjali Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita, because these both are the manuals where the yoga principles are very clearly laid out. Various other manuals are there which are process manuals like Hatha Yoga Pratipika, Gheranda Samhita, Shiva Samhita, Hatha Ratnavali, Yoga Yajna Valkya. Like that, there are many manuals where only processes are given. And here, why we are first focusing on principles. Yesterday, we saw that the principles never change. The principles are universal, and the processes are always tweaked to the day and age we live. So, we saw various examples, and those who have joined new today, we will share the sessions of yesterday so that you can understand in depth how the principles will remain the same, the processes will be fine-tuned by the living tradition. Okay, it's just keep this point in mind. And then we saw that there are various Ashtanga yoga systems, and we have chosen Patanjali Yoga Sutras because it is one of the darshanas mentioned in the Indian tradition. Darshanas means to see. Darshana means to see. The reason why we call the Indian systems as darshana is mainly because they provide us with a what and a how. What is the principles and how is the processes. Yesterday we also saw that everyone knows that we have to be happy. But how to be happy, very many of us do not know. We constantly keep looking out, but we have everything. All of us seated here, maybe we are 1% of the world's population where we have access to everything. We have at least a dozen dresses in various colors. At will, you have a good, at least one good working relationship in life. Correct? You have a qualification. You are employable. So we have everything with us, but still we constantly search how to be happy. So these processes may give you an idea of how to in life. The main thing is how to be happy also, right? So darshanas give you the what, which is principles. And if I say a truth and stop there, it becomes a philosophy. If we say a truth and tell how that truth can be experienced so that you can realize that truth for yourself, that becomes a darshana. It is like simple, showing you a chocolate and saying this is chocolate, it's philosophy. And telling you this is how you have to open the wrapper and put it in your mouth and you have to enjoy that, that's darshana. It is you are shown and you also know how to experience the chocolate in its entirety. That's a very simple. that brings smile in everyone's face, right? Because all of us like chocolate, something like that. So please remember that. Another simple way to understand this, if you write anything, and this other way is bringing whatever you write into reality. So this way we understand what is darshana, right? Then we figured out that Patanjali Yoga Sutras has 196 aphorisms. Aphorisms means sutras, which are spread over 4 chapters. Chapters are called padas. Okay. So the names of the 4 padas are Samadhi Pada, Sadhana Pada, Vibhuti Pada, and Kaivalya Pada. So most of the ancient texts follow a very simple principle. When you look at the first word of the way they have started the text, which generally gives you the gist of the text, that is what is to follow. So when you take up Bhagavad Gita, it starts with the word Dharma Kshetre, correct? Dharma. Dharma is the word with which it starts. So we should understand intuitively that there is no intuition, somebody has intuited, but we should understand that the entire text of 700 couplets is going to tell us about what is dharma. Understood? So when you see the text Yoga Sutras starting with Atha Yoga Anushasanam, it means Atha means now, because now is the only reality. Correct? So Yoga Sutras are going to tell us how to experience that now. Okay, how to experience that now. Now is the present moment and the only reality, because past is past and future is yet to be born. The seeds of future are in the now. So the entire text is nothing but helping us to experience the power of now in this modern context. That's how that word is very famous. And we can utilize another word called awareness. Awareness is required for us to be in the now. So this entire text tells us how to be in the now. Various principles are elucidated, and the yoga system takes root in the present form how we are practicing in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So Patanjali has outlined the 8 limbs of yoga. Correct? Limbs, how do we understand? This is a limb, this is a limb. Everything is a limb. Remember, in modern day, we are always trained many times to think this is better than that. But all the ancient systems give equal importance to knowledge. Do we understand that? Because many of us may think asana is only one limb of yoga, which is the third limb. But I am willing to learn meditation, which I think is the highest because it is the 7th limb of yoga. But can we say that right hand is more important than the left leg? We cannot say that. So first we should remove the misconception that one limb of yoga is greater than the other. So our way of comparison is different. There is nothing called comparison, because you can never compare a cup of water with a cup of coffee. Each has its own role and timing. Am I right? So all we say is, do not have a cup of coffee in empty stomach. Have a cup of water first. You understood? So each has its significance. So asana has its own significance. Meditation has its own significance. So first notion which we have to remove from our minds, if at all it is there, is to remove from our mind that one limb of yoga is greater or lesser than the other. All the limbs, they have their own place in the scheme of things. So this is one important thing we have to understand, because many of us generally enter an yoga class and say, when are you going to share the knowledge of meditation? They are very impatient to learn meditation. Yesterday we saw that meditation is given the seventh limb because that's a progressive way you have to reach. Like how you take water in empty stomach before you reach out to your cup of coffee. You understood? So there is a hierarchy in which you take food or you get up in morning. First you get up. There is a routine you do, correct? There is a hierarchy of routines. Just because you spend only 2 minutes to brush your teeth, it is not a lesser activity than 15 minutes you spend for having your breakfast. Each has its own hierarchy of things in the life. Remember. So this is how we understand this concept. And we saw the 8 limbs of yoga. What are they? So with this we stopped yesterday. And each of you defined how and what you feel yoga is. Correct? And we also saw that it is very important to learn directly from traditions than to pick up a book or Google out if you do not know anything to understand. It's as good as someone Googling out how to do a bypass surgery. Correct? Content today is available. How to assemble an RDX bomb. It is also available in internet. Correct? How to play guitar. How to ride a bicycle. So what all these 4 ideas what I gave you, a bypass surgery, an RDX bomb, or how to ride a bicycle, how to play a guitar. This knowledge, if you take from a book or an internet, they are all only intellectual in nature. Correct? So somebody should be there to make us understand in reality how these things are done. You understand? So there are things which you can use internet and book. Suppose you want to book a railway ticket, you can use internet to book a railway ticket. You want to send email, you use the internet to send email. Is it clear? Like how water has its space and time where you take it, coffee has its place. Everything you should know when to do, how much to do. So the external source of knowledge where there is no human interface has its limitation. Any journey, any inner journey, we need to have a human interface. It is like a child trying to learn alphabets on its own. If it tries on its own, till at the age of 7, maybe the child will appear autistic, correct? Child will be normal, but there is a system which has to be put in place so that the child develops the ability to learn, right? So many of us assume that we are old, so we know. But in every new subject, we are a child, correct? Though the new subject has English and Sanskrit or our mother tongue, books are written in those, we know, but with respect to that knowledge, we are a child, correct? So we should first understand and accept any new field of knowledge. You should assume the bhava, the attitude of a child, because a child will learn without judgment. The child will learn quick because the child doesn't have the intellectual hangover. That mindset is required. So this is the reason why we should never try and approach certain aspects of new knowledge from internet or books. So in a different way, we saw about this yesterday. I'm just giving you a summary.